So if I lost everything today and had to start completely over, no employees, no money, absolutely nothing, this is pretty much exactly how I do it and how I did it already in the past, right? So when I started Indie Creative, it was a pretty rocky start, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of different problems that you encounter when you're starting a business. And if I'm being completely honest, most of those problems all stem from one thing, which is the mental, because you're doing something that you've never done before and you're doing something without initial reward or instant reward, right? So training your brain is actually the biggest thing. It's never actually a financial problem or a skill gap. It's literally just training your brain that sometimes it's okay to work for a day and not get paid. Sometimes it's okay to work for a week and not get paid, a month and not get paid. Some entrepreneurs, like game developers, if you just think about it for a second, some game developers developing their first game, they might go 3 years without getting paid because they have to develop a game over a 3-year period without getting paid at all. That is constant work, working through problems every single day for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on the game, without getting paid. So that's the first obstacle that you need to overcome. The way that I overcame this obstacle was actually just backing myself up against a wall and doing that multiple times. I already knew that I had the skills to cold call, which worked in my favor. I knew that I had the skills to cold call businesses, turn them into bookings, run bookings, and make sales. And I knew that I already had a high ticket skill, which was running ads better than 95% of Australia. So I had confidence behind my product, but what I didn't have was the drive to work when I was already comfortable. So leaving that comfortability zone, that 9 to 5 where the bills are paid, you clock in 9, you clock out 5, you're happy, you're comfortable. Man, I miss the days sometimes. But leaving that zone of comfortability to do something, do work without the regular comfort that you're used to is a big switch. So most of starting a business in 2026 is the exact same as starting a business in 1980, 1800s. It's all in the brain and it's all in the mental. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today and how to actually obviously conquer those obstacles, putting yourself in a position where all there is left to do is win. And some other things that I, of course, did to go from zero to multi-million-dollar in, I think it's been like 12 months. So first step is the mental. Working without reward. Incredibly difficult. An incredibly difficult skill to harness. Although there's multiple ways to, of course, work without reward. First thing that you can do, the first thing that I did to obviously stay disciplined and continue towards the goal of obviously running my own company and financial freedom and building a team and building something that's bigger than myself, and most importantly, building something that is going to fucking outlive me, which is the coolest feeling. Whilst understanding that I had these skills, I had to push myself up against a wall so that all that I could do was win. So I knew that I could cold call. I knew that I did have a product that was better than the current product on the market. So what I actually did was I went over to my ex-mother-in-law's house with nothing but a printed out sheet of 04 business numbers and a Nokia flip phone, 0 distractions. And I would time block for 3 hours to go, no matter what happens, I'm going to sit in this chair and get through these numbers. And that's how I started. So I needed to actually put in physical boundaries to be able to start, which is some extents that you need to go to after going from working at 100%, 10%, 30%, 50%, or whatever percent you're working at and still getting your salary, moving from the comfortable life over to the uncomfortable life. And that's just the kind of plateau that every business owner experiences when starting their own business. Sometimes it's going to take you a week before you get your first paycheck or your first stint and your first win. Sometimes it's going to take a year before you get your first financial win. And that kind of segues me over to the second point, which is learning to enjoy. Learning to enjoy is actually how you're going to grow far further and far faster, by far. So I had to put in physical boundaries in place where I could not physically go onto Instagram, TikTok, scroll, YouTube series, fucking movies, etc. I had to put physical boundaries in place because I wasn't in an environment that I was enjoying. I was in my ex-mother-in-law's fucking house with yellow dim lighting. It was horrible. I didn't like it. So I had to make it so that there was literally nothing that else I could do, and calling businesses was actually more entertaining than sitting there going crazy. But one little tip that I learned along the way was I could just do whatever the fuck I want. It was my business. I could say whatever the fuck I want. I could be whatever the fuck I want. I could drink whenever I want, eat whenever I want. And this is something that I capitalized on very early. My CEO benefits, in a sense. I pretty much unlearnt the last way that I knew sales, which was professional, cross T's, dot I's, and I implemented my own language. So it didn't feel like I was putting on makeup or putting on a persona to actually be able to communicate with business owners and obviously get my brand out there. So what I would do was I would just speak myself. I would swear, I would have a laugh, and I would genuinely just have conversations, which took it up from a 2 out of 10 to about a 7 out of 10 experience. So it actually required less physical barriers to be able to enjoy and do what was moving the boat forward in terms of business. One of the other things that I was doing when I was starting my business that did actually help me give me the push, there was a time where business wasn't working very well. I think that we were maybe making $500 a week, which was barely covering rent. So I did actually have to get a part-time job. I was selling concrete sleepers. Pretty much the boringest thing a fucking man can sell. With all these skills to sell high-level, high-ticket, massive marketing operations, moving over to selling fucking concrete blocks was incredibly degrading. But it was actually the push that I didn't know I needed. So 3 days a week, it was Tuesday through Thursday, I was selling concrete blocks. But Monday and Friday, after implementing the strategies of I'm going over my ex-mother-in-law's house, I am speaking how the fuck I want to speak, I'm eating when I want to fucking eat, I'm saying what I want to fucking say, plus I've got this fucking burden hovering over me, you're gonna go back and sell fucking concrete sleepers. I've put all 3 physical boundaries and mental boundaries in place, that the only option that I could do was win. And winning actually became a lot more comfortable than the life that I built around me. That's how I got over the mental. Some actions and some shit that you can take, obviously, for your own business, no matter where you're at in business as well. Obviously, if a task is something that requires copious amounts of effort to do, it's simply because you don't like the task. So there's multiple actionables that you can make. 1, do it anyway and hate it. Or 2, learn to love it. Now, this goes into 2 completely different segues. If it's a one-off task that you don't want to do, you're taking the fucking bins out for 3 weeks because the guy that usually takes the bins out isn't fucking here. It's something that you don't want to do. Obviously, you're not going to put the time in to make that an enjoyable task. Maybe you can. Maybe skip taking the fucking bins out, but it's going to require more effort and more mental capacity to make that an enjoyable process, and it's only a 3-week thing. But say if it's something that you're going to see yourself having to do for the next 6 to 12 fucking months, 6 to 12 years even, it's time to learn how to make it enjoyable. There's multiple ways to make mundane, repetitive task enjoyable. There's music, dancing, and especially when you're CEO, when you're owner, when you're growing something that's bigger than yourself, there's a lot of ways to make it enjoyable. Those are really the 2 kind of options that you have. You either A, do it anyway, or 2, learn to love it. I would always opt for the learn to love it method. I tried the fucking do it anyway method, which was backing myself up to a wall. Yes, it did actually kickstart my business, and I did everything that I needed to do to put the physical boundaries in place so that I just had to fucking do it anyway, and it is actually what brought in the first bit of revenue for my business. Sitting there and calling with no music, uncomfortable environment, nobody around me, no real high office energy. I did just do it anyway to get the first dollars coming through. And then slowly, as it became more natural, I learned to love it. Doing it anyway, that was motivation. That doesn't last longer than a week. Learning to love it, that removed the need for motivation. And that's how you can do something for months, years. So realistically, if I was starting my business this year, starting my business completely again, no money, the one thing that I would do first is just grab a list, grab a fucking sheet and work out, okay, what do I need to do to make money? What do I need to do to keep money? What are the tasks required? Sales, marketing to make money. Keep money, I need to work on product and service. So I just write those down. These are the 4 pinnacles. These are the 4 most important things in business. Making money, keeping money through sales and marketing is making money. Keeping money is via your product, your service, your custom service, all that kind of shit. And now I would write down, how do I make these tasks enjoyable? So that it doesn't require mental capacity to fucking do it. I can wake up before my alarm because I'm excited, I'm ignited to go to fucking what we used to call work. I'm going to a place that I enjoy that is more comfortable than bed, or than scrolling, or than drinking, or staying in the same crowd doing the same fucking thing.